Hi, this is Douglas C. Perry, Editor-in-Chief of IGN PS2, and I'm here with Martin Edmondson, Development Director for Reflections, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about Driv3r today. So, can you tell me what the main goals behind Driv3r are?
The main thing that we were trying to do was to try and obviously update the game with the new technology, but really to maintain the spirit of the original Driv3r, which was it always has been really the most accurate simulation possible of Hollywood and TV car chases created by you, and to maintain the sort of knockabout fun, that pick up and play element. A high degree of simulation and physics involved, but not obstructive simulation. It's more just getting the collision to look right, the car handling to look right, and making it fun, because everything that happens in the world to do with the cars is entirely predictable and looks like something that you would have seen on a movie.
Okay, so you sort of wanted to go back to the roots of Driv3r. Does that sound accurate?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's we're not trying to do anything which is we're trying to do it in the same spirit of Driv3r, really, which is just to the core thrust of it really is just accurate simulation, an accurate fun simulation of the car chase, without getting too technical and detailed. That's what we're really trying to do.
So, Reflections and Atari announced a very small amount of information on Driv3r, I don't know, about 8 months ago it seems like. What I'd like to do is ask you a couple questions about some of the details you're able to reveal now. For instance, everyone wants to know, what kind of cars you can drive. Can you drive any car in any city?
The cars that we have at there's around about 50 or 60 vehicles in the game. They vary from the normal sort of cars and trucks and vans, but we also have new to the game is fully articulated trucks, so the 18-wheel rig type things. You can drive those with or without the trailer section, so you can reverse one of those into the trailer section and hook up, and you're then driving a full-blown 18-wheeler. The cars, they change for each city. So in Miami, they consist mainly of 70s muscle cars, very much in the same style as the original Driver. Miami being from the original Driver as well. It's set in Miami for the first game, so Tanner returns to his roots for Driv3r, and it's set in Miami. Istanbul is a selection of there's some sort of old, dusty French Citroens, Peugeots, and those sorts of things. Those kind of designs, but there's also a few more sort of flash Ferrari type of cars. The cars aren't actually licensed because of issues to do with the street driving and the amount of damage that you can inflict.
Isn't it because you're just destroying them?
It's the level of destruction, really, and the fact that level of destruction takes place in a street environment, and it causes problems for some manufacturers. Not all manufacturers, but for some manufacturers. And because all manufacturers can't agree on what's okay, it makes it a pain for a developer trying to have a level set of rules for what we can and can't do with the cars. And to be really honest about it, Driv3r is not the kind of game that requires licensed cars the way that Gran Turismo requires licensed cars.
So 50 to 60 cars,
right.
all different kinds,
yeah.
No license. Now, in Driv3r 1, you couldn't get out of the car. In Driv3r 2, you could. What's your plan for Driv3r 3 with regard to the character getting out of the car?
Yeah, in Driv3r 3, Tanner can get out of the car the same as he could in Driv3r 2. He's now armed. He has a range of guns that are based in reality, because what we wanted to do was try and maintain some level of realism, but still have a fun element in there. So he has a couple of different types of single handgun, pistol type of thing, type of gun. Shotguns, pump-action shotguns, machine guns, two-handed variety that you hold against the shoulder, but also the single-handed, compact, the Mac-10 type of rapid-fire machine gun, those kind of things. So those are the sorts of things that those are the sort of equipment that we've got in there. We don't have sort of laser cannons or anything particularly ridiculous, they're real. But what we've tried to do is Driv3r has always been, in fact all of our games have been famous for the realism also knockabout fun of the kind of destruction and damage that you can do to the cars, all based on a physics engine. But you can, the amount of damage that you can do and the realism of that damage that gives a satisfaction to destroying vehicles, we've tried to carry over to the elements where Tanner's handling the gun. So Driv3r is not about stealthy walking into a room with a silenced weapon and picking off the odd intruder and sneaking your way through. It's about walking into a room with a Mag-10 machine gun and just spraying the place with bullets, and then seeing the result of that. You know, after the dust settles, the devastation that you caused in this room, the bullet holes and the general damage that you can do, exploding scenery and so on. So, just to recap, really, it was to try and take that knockabout, realistic, satisfying destruction from the car side of things into the gun side of things as well. Having said that, the balance of play is very much in favour of cars. It's a driving game principally, and 2/3, probably more than 2/3 actually, 3/4 is driving, and the remainder is the on-foot action.
So can I ask you a little bit? I know I understand now what you're sort of going after with regard to the Tanner not being able to get out of the car and do things. Do you mind if I ask you a couple things about what his functions are and his capabilities are?
Yeah, he's not a terribly complicated character. We don't. I mean, the guy can run around. He can handle a gun. He can open. He can open doors to places. He can jump and so on. But there's nothing complex in there. He doesn't. Climb complicated structures or anything like that. He's got the control method that we've gone for. Actually, it's an automatic strafing system. So on one pad, you're controlling his direction, and it's like a first-person shooter mode, effectively, so that you don't have the problem with something going on behind you, and then to look behind you, you've got to run in that direction. You can just rotate and strafe at the same time, just using the two pads.
Okay.
So he's fairly flexible to move around. So the whole time you can look up and look down, and this goes for where he's pointing the gun as well. So if I'm aiming a gun at you and I want to move this way, I don't have to have a strafe button. I can just take a step to the side and I'll still aim at you. It's not, I don't run in that direction and the gun comes away from you and then comes back to you. It's
right.
One of the things that we wanted to do was to make it very easy to use.
And it's a third-person camera, right?
Third or first.
Third or first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the whole game
depending on the weapon,
or the whole game can be played either first person or third person.
Oh, okay. And so you'll have the same options for driving, first or third person cameras?
Well, there's more than that. The driving cameras, you have a couple of selections of third person view, the usual height selections. You've then got first person, and you also have the drop camera, which we've retained from Driv3r. Actually, it was in Driv3r, Driv2r and Stuntman, and it's also in Driv3r. So what happens is you drop the camera, and the camera stays on the ground and tracks the car. It's like a remote control driving. You can see in a fairly filmic way what you're doing as you drive around, and then you press it again, and it's back into being car.
Can you give us a backstory about the game? Are you willing to reveal anything about the story?
The story is based around a gang of car thieves, and what they're doing is they are stealing cars that have been imported into Miami. And his job, Tanner's job, or Tanner and Jones' job, because Jones comes across from Driv2 again. And what they need to do is infiltrate the gang, gain their trust through a variety of missions and so on, and then ultimately bring down this gang, and that takes them from Miami to Nice to Istanbul. So since the backbone of the story is based around gang stealing cars, it just gives us a lot of opportunity to have missions that are car related. It's a good excuse for car related missions. So that's the basic idea of the story.
So there were numerous things that Driv3r introduced into the series. One was getting out of the car. Another was a sort of follow meter, a little meter that shows up and says how close or how far away you are from.
That was in Driv3r as well.
I take it back.
2 missions in Driv3r that involve following people.
So I guess that wasn't introduced in Driv2. Is that something that's going to be in the third one? Those kinds of missions?
Well, we want to make the missions as diverse as possible. I think the following missions were one of those missions that were probably quite good on paper, but just not that exciting to play. So there weren't. I think there were only 2 actually in Driv2, so it wasn't really a great problem. But there are not so many missions that are tightly timed. There are certain reasons that I don't want to go into, particularly that would encourage you to do a mission quickly. It might be the outcome of the mission, it might be something that's going on at the other end of the mission. But it's not a case of go and meet Jones, at the cafe, and you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to get there. It's a little bit more loose structured than that. But the missions are they're about as diverse as they can be involving cars. You've always got a basic problem with a car mission, which is that it's always going to be a chase, or being chased, or going from A to B, or following somebody, or chasing somebody, or extremely high-speed chase, or trying to drive somewhere quickly without damaging the car. But the missions themselves, because Tanner can get out of the car and he can do so much more, the missions become a lot more interesting anyway, because they don't purely involve, as in Driver 1, they just purely involve driving from A to B.
So, is the story going to be driving the game? In other words, not to use the driving word as a pun, but for instance, a game that's similar to Driver 3, Grand Theft Auto, has a relatively linear story, but you're able to do many things in the meantime. So if you wanted to talk to a certain boss, that would progress the story. But if you wanted to scoop around, you do that. How are you designing the levels and the story in Driver 3?
What we've done is we focus probably more on the story to drive the missions, because you have a basic problem when designing a game like this, which is the stronger you make the more diverse you make the missions in terms of your selection of missions at any one time, the more difficult it is to relate those to a story, because some of the other games, if you have you can choose 6 or 7 different missions. Those missions tend to be go and pick up this for this guy, go and deliver this for this guy, go and steal this guy, go and beat up or kill this guy. But we have the missions follow on one from the other, so they're able to integrate it a lot better with the story. So the cutscenes are progressing the story rather than just character interaction and character chatting. It just starts to involve you a little bit more in the story. So hopefully you care a bit more about completing the mission, because you're just a bit more involved in not just the narrative, but actually involved in the story itself, or what's going on in the story. But having said that, what we've done is been careful to design the missions so that the missions themselves are not linear missions. There's many different ways of solving some of the missions. Just to give you one example, one of the missions involves the gang. The gang have heard about a rival gang have got a car which they're transporting to a drop-off point, and it's a kind of a blue E-type Jag type of thing. And they want you to go and steal this car from them. And this car is located in the compound, and they tell you that there's a truck driver going to pick up that car and take it to the drop-off point. And that's the information you have. So anyway, you wait for this truck to pull out of the compound, and he drives down the road, and you follow him, because you're thinking, okay, we'll follow this truck to the compound, and we don't really know what happens when we get there, but we'll wait and see, and try and steal this car. And as you're driving along, the truck pulls out in front of you. It's obviously connected with the original gang, and the sliding doors open, 2 guys jump out, start shooting at you. So you've then got a choice of what you can do. Now, one way of solving the thing is you jump out of the car, shoot the 2 guys that have jumped out the side of the van. The truck is blocking your way, but meanwhile this other truck's getting away. So you then take out the guy who's driving the truck, pull him out, you can jump in the truck yourself, and then you can either chase after him in that truck, or you can just use the jumping into the car to move the truck, then jump back into your original car, hair off after the truck, by which time the truck is away. So you follow the truck goes to the compound, it pulls into the compound where the car you want to steal is, and a whole bunch of bad guys jump out and start shooting at you. So you've then got a shootout on your hands. So you jump out of the car, you shoot the guys. Hopefully if you know what you're doing, you played the mission a couple of times or whatever, you'll take out these guys. You'll shoot everybody in the compound. You can then get the truck and drive you open up the back of the truck, and the ramp drops down. You can drive the car into the back of the truck, close the truck doors, and then drive off to the drop-off point yourself. So mission successful. You've successfully stolen the car back off the gang. The other alternative is, as this truck pulls out, instead of messing about killing the guys in the truck, you can try and find another route. So you spin the car around, you drive up the mountain. If you look at the map, study the map, you'll find this little mountain pass, and that mountain pass actually shortcuts around the truck that pulled out in front of you. So you can do that. The other thing is there's a cafe bar on the way to there which has a bike parked outside of it, so you can jump on a bike, and a bike's quicker than the car, so that's another option.
So you can ride motorcycles?
You can ride motorcycles, yeah.
Great.
You can do a lot of things with the bikes as well in terms of, talk about that a little bit later if you want to talk about that, but the kind of things you can do with the bikes are really quite sort of fun. So you get on a bike, and if you're really quick, you can actually get ahead of the truck. And then so you think, okay, well I can get ahead of the truck. You know from the story in the cutscene before, the guys in the compound, they're expecting the truck, but they don't know what the truck driver looks like. So you can get ahead of the truck, jump off your bike, if you're fast, jump out of the car, and as the truck goes by, you can pick off the driver. So you kill the driver slumps over the wheel, and the truck grinds to a halt. So you open the door, you pull the driver out, jump in the truck yourself, and you drive to the compound. And because the truck arrives on time, there's nobody in tow, they don't know what the driver looks like, they think you're the driver. Here's the key to the car. They hand the car over to you, basically. No opposition, very easy way of doing the mission. Easy in terms of not having to have the shootout at the compound, but difficult in terms of having to drive very quickly to get ahead of the truck. So that's another way of doing it. Now you don't even have to load the car up into the truck if you don't want to, because your instruction was to steal the car. So forget the truck, you can just have the shootout or drive the truck there, but then just drive the car from the compound to the drop-off point. But the problem you've got there is because the bad guys know the car, they'll soon be onto your tail, and then you'll have a chase on your hand instead. If you take the truck, you don't have a chase on your hand because they thought you were there, and so on. So there's all these sort of multi-strand possibilities with that mission, and what we're hoping is that people will, they'll pound away at this mission, they'll finish the mission, and somebody else, one of their friends or somebody on the forum will say, hey, you didn't even need to do that. You could have just taken out the guy, jumped in the truck, arrived, because remember, they don't even know what you look like, and so on. So we've designed a lot of the missions to be like that, to give you a kind of some of it's a replay reward if you want to go back and play it again, but some of it is just to try and get you thinking about alternative ways of cheating to finish a mission.